It's talk time with little scholars every Saturday. Come hear the scholars. We learn, we laugh, and we share our minds from peace building to technology, education, current affairs, and social life. Find us on YouTube, Upperboards, and SoundCloud. We have got big ideas just waiting for you. With voices young and stories bold, together we shine, together we grow. It's talk time with little scholars. This is a project of Excellence Foundation for South Sudan. Let's build a world where young minds flow.
My first step, how love to recognize the presence of the moderator, the secretary, timekeeper, the judges, the invited guests, teachers around, visitors, negators, and affirmers, while not forgetting you, my dear beloved listeners and the house alert. My name is Alado Akamgo, a senior 2 student from Golden Brains Academic Secondary School. Before you this afternoon to come and affirm the resolution that says, community stigma is the biggest barrier to improving of mental health, of which I support 100% because of my following views. Ladies and gentlemen, I will talk of the following: fear of judgment and stigma exaggerates misinformation. After me is going to be Helen Simon Abbas, who will come and talk of the following: isolation and social rejection. Stigma influences mental health funding and policies. Internalized shame, and after her is going to be Joe Malangul, who will come and talk of the following: suppress open conversation. Stigma exists across cultures and societies, and stigma affects all age groups. Ladies and gentlemen, before I proceed ahead, I'd like to define the key terms first. Community stigma refers to the negative attitudes, beliefs, and stereotypes held by a group or society toward individuals with mental health issues, which include discrimination and social exclusion about mental illness within a local, cultural, or societal group. Biggest barrier refers to the most significant obstacles that hinders progress. Improving mental health refers to the providing of overall psychological well-being of communities and individuals, which include prevention and treatment. Ladies and gentlemen, let's make the general analysis of the resolution. It simply means all the potential barriers such as lack of funding, limited access to care, education, and cultural taboos are actually the most challenges that affect our mental health and well-being in our societies today. Ladies and gentlemen, furthermore, I love to talk of fear of judgment. Fear of judgment prevents people from seeking help. Ladies and gentlemen, Advanced English Dictionary defines judgment as the act of accusing a person or situation. Many individuals with mental health avoid seeking help due to the fear of being judged by others from their community. The worry being labeled as weak, crazy, or unstable. This fear often outweighs their desire for help, delaying treatment and worsening symptoms. But if we all in this Haggard's house denounce community stigma, we shall be able to have our mental health. However, many individuals with HIV and AIDS experience discrimination and may fear judgment from their community, leading to isolation and hindering their access to treatment. Research shows that many HIV and AIDS patients die every day, not because of the virus, but because of the community stigma. The presiding officer allowed me to justify my point of view. According to the ChatGPT, UNAIDS 2014 report that over 35% of people living with HIV in Kenya and Nigeria delay testing or treatment due to fear of stigma. I hand this point through the table of moderator by the judges and back to the audience. To get the fire burning, I like to talk of stigma exaggerates misinformation. Ladies and gentlemen, misinformation is the wrong spreading of a text or message about a particular issue or situation according to Advanced English Dictionary. My dear audience, community stigma is often rooted from misconceptions and myths. We start to believe that mental illness is a sign of laziness or lack of faith. These false ideas led to ignorance, making it harder for people to understand and support those struggling with mental health issues. But if we all in this August house abolish community stigma and we start to educate the community with right information about issues such as early pregnancy and many others, we will be able to have a better South Sudan that will be free from mental disorder and stress. For example, Matthew Quick once said, the problem with the stigma around mental is really the stories that we tell ourselves as a society. It's fundamental. We should not tell wrong histories or information that may discourage, for example, an underage pregnant lady from achieving her dreams of going back to school. Presiding officer, allow me to justify my point of view. According to the National Library of Medicine, it says that stigmatization, misinformation, and discrimination have been magnified globally due to the COVID-19 pandemic. In my summary, I had to fear of judgment where I said people with mental illness fear to go for treatment as a result of judgment, and also misinformation where I say community members discourage people with mental illness by giving them wrong information that mental illness is a cause. To sum up everything, ladies and gentlemen, ignoring a role of stigma in mental health is like treating symptoms while ignoring disease. Community attitudes are a core part of programs and solutions. Thanks.
The first speaker from Radar Academy, Dr. Juba. Honorable, you're welcome. The moderator, secretary, timekeeper, judge, the two competing parties, guest staffs, and ladies and gentlemen. Afternoon. I in front of you, Brighton Juba, a student from Bright Light Secondary School. I have come to oppose the motion that states community stigma is the biggest barrier to improving mental health. Please, the moderator, allow me to introduce the key words. Community is a group of people who live in a particular area. Stigma is a feeling that something is bad or embarrassing, especially when it's wrong. Barrier is a gate or fence used to stop people from getting the past. Mental to do with mind or thinking. Health, how well the body is. During the course of the journey, I was not alone, but I came with the members from the opposition side, and allow me to introduce them. I in front of you once again, I'm called Brighton Juma, the first speaker from the opposition side, and I'll be handling a point that says perpetuates misinformation. And the second speaker from the opposition side is another Honorable Joy Joan, and she'll be handling a point that talks about discouraging self-seeking. And the last, who is the third speaker from the opposition side, is another Honorable Jennifer Mather, and she'll be handling the point that says about the impacts of self-esteem. Back to the motion, community stigma is the biggest barrier to improving mental health. Yes, community stigma is the biggest barrier to improving mental health, but according to us, we said no. Why do I say so? This is because it can prevent individuals from seeking help, accessing treatment, and participating fully in the society. According to my point of achievement, we say that perpetuates misinformation. Why do I say so? Shall allow me to define the word. Perpetuates means something that continues for a long time, especially when something is bad or wrong. Misinformation, saying of false or misleading information. Back to the point, perpetuates misinformation. This is because of the negative stereotypes and inaccurate beliefs about mental illness, and this can make it difficult to combat stigma. Stereotypes is just like an idea on how a particular type of person is like, and this may be false or unfair. Combat is just fighting against something. So, presence of the evidence, I would like to set my evidence via the moderator how community stigma impacts mental health. Summary, I've talked about perpetuates misinformation. I've talked about because of the negative stereotypes, and I would like to stop here by saying the people from the proposition team, I'd like you to line behind me saying that community stigma is not the biggest barrier to improving mental health. Proposition, that is Simon.
In my first place, I would like to say my excellent greeting through the table of the moderator, the secretary, the judges, the town manager, farmers and negators, the invited guests, the teachers, not forgetting you, the audience, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Simon Abbas from Golden Place Academy Secondary School, Senior 1 class, here before you to affirm the valid motion that says community stigma is the biggest barrier to improving our mental health. And I strongly affirm the resolution 100% because of our following views. Before I go far, I would like to rebut the points that was spoken by the negators. Misinformation. Ladies and gentlemen, when society pass wrong information to people with mental health challenges, they will get discouraged. For this reason, we team affirmers strongly affirm the resolution. I hand this point through the table of the moderator, required by the secretary, via the judges, and back to the audience. I would like to go to my points of argument. Internalized shame or self-stigma. Ladies and gentlemen, internalized shame refers to as painful emotions resulting from awareness of guilty. Ladies and to forward my evidence. According to steps to support, when having a conversation with someone, important to know here can be stigmas and negative marks around mental health. And on this point, through the name of the moderator, recorded by the secretary, via the judges, and back to the audience. I would like to talk of mental health influencing founding and policy. Ladies and gentlemen, when societies undervalue mental health, governments underfund services and support. But if societies value mental health, governments fund support and services in terms of hospitals, clinics, and many other support like education where mental health can be treated. For example, the World Health Organization reports that less than 2% of the national health budget are spent on mental health services because simply communities undervalue mental health. Honorable moderator, allow me to show my evidence. According to National Library of Medicine, the relationship between stigma and discrimination and access to care is multifaceted. And on this point, through the name of the moderator, recorded by the secretary, via the judges, and back to the audience. As a talk of isolation and social rejection, ladies and gentlemen, isolation can simply mean the separations between persons or groups according to advanced English dictionary. However, rejection can mean the act of refusing to accept someone or something by a society. Ladies and gentlemen, community stigma causes generalized shame. Ladies and gentlemen, people with mental health challenges may be distant from families, friends, or community members. These isolations increase the feeling of loneliness and depression, creating a cycle that makes recovery to become even harder. But if you all accept the inclusivity of people with mental health challenges, we can be able to reduce suicide, stress, and many other mental health issues. For example, the already focal group of psychological and emotional violence in the society show that women face community stigma over late marriage and failure to give birth. As many communities believe that late marriage or failure to give birth in a society is a crime. Honorable moderator, allow me to show my evidence. According to the government of UK, experiments of loneliness, mental health, and stigma varied by social group. And on this point, through the name of the moderator, followed by the secretary, by the judges, and back to the audience. In summary, I have talked about generalized shame or self-stigma, whereby I say generalized shame refers to a self-painful emotions resulting from awareness of guilty. And also, mental health influencing founding and policy, whereby I say societies undervalue mental health. And lastly, I have talked of isolation and social rejection, whereby instead of separations between persons or groups according to advanced English dictionary. Conclusively, I would like to say community stigma not only delays treatment but also depends suffering. It turns a mental illness from a social shame, making recovery more and how difficult.
So please further clarify this. Madam Joshua, from the stage is yours.
In my first place, I would like to send my greetings to the moderator, the secretary, the judges, timekeeper, the staff, guests, ladies and gentlemen. Here before you, my name is Joanna, a student from senior 1 class, and I'm 17 years old, a student from private group. Actually, I'm here to oppose the motion which says that community stigma is the biggest barrier to improve mental health. Up to my side is 0%, and I disagree with it because of my following views. I'm going to talk of misinformation. And misinformation means when people are being misinformed of something. For example, there was a lot of misinformation about HIV stroke AIDS. That people with HIV are dangerous. They are not supposed to stay with the community. They are not supposed to stay with people. They are supposed to stay different ways. But I disagree with that. People with HIV AIDS, they can eat with people. They can even share clothes with others. They can move. People who are not having can move with people who are infected with HIV AIDS. Okay. So why are you saying that it is not possible? For me, I disagree. I have my evidence here, which is from the Ministry of General Education and Instruction. I submit my point to the table of Mr. Honorable Chairperson or the moderator back to the audience. Not only that, but also courage helps the king. Courage means try to stop something from happening. Helps me to try to make someone please about it or to try to do something. Not only that, but also taking. Taking means try to find something or achieve something. Under it, fear of judgment, discrimination, negative ideas can prevent individuals from seeking timely medical treatment. For example, isolation helps to disclose or disclose as a mental health condition due to concerns having been seen with. Honorable Chairperson, may you allow me to show you my written document evidence? I submit the point to the table of Mr. Honorable Chairperson, by the guests and to you, my audience. Not only that, but also limit social opportunities. Limit means having less opportunity. Social opportunity means any opportunity that has been given to someone, and that it is stimulating attitude and head to social exclusive. Typically, finding employment and establishing relationship. For example, believing people with mental health conditions are like they are unpredictable and they are unstable. Unpredictable means someone that cannot be described. The way the person behaves is different and it is strange. So I disagree with that. Mr. Honorable Chairperson, may you allow me to show my evidence? I submit the point to the rebel of Mr. Honorable Chairperson. Allow me to return to you, my dear ladies and gentlemen. How talk of self-judgment, discrimination, social opportunities, and also talk of misinformation. And I'm going to tell the preposition side that I disagree with you on what you say. You say that community barrier is the biggest barrier to improve mental health. For me, I'm going to stand strongly by saying that community stigma is not the biggest barrier to improve mental health conditions. If River Nile go dry, I'm going to stand firm with that.
Honorable Joe, Honorable, welcome to take you.
That even where my opponent says that community stigma is not the biggest barrier to improving mental health, for me to ask them a simple question. My opponent, if you say community stigma is not the biggest barrier to improving mental health, what are other barriers to improving mental health? For me to recognize the president of the moderator, the presiding officer, the secretary, the pen holder, the timekeeper, who is the pen, who is time manager, affirmers, negators, my fellow students who are around, and lastly, dear respected guests, ladies and gentlemen. My name is John Malambule, senior 2 student from Golden Brains Academy Secondary School, here in front of you to affirm the resolution which says community stigma is the biggest barrier to improving mental health. But first, allow me to rebut the point that was said by my opponent. I talked of misinformation. I don't understand. If I misinform you about something, you will feel discouraged. If I tell you HIV/AIDS will not leave you, even if you take RVs, you will be discouraged, and that will lead you to committing either suicide and other things. That's why we think affirm strongly affirm the resolution. To dive into my points of argument, I would like to talk of suppressed open conversation. According to English dictionary, the word open conversation is defined as free and open expression or talking in public. Cultural taboos and silence around mental health prevent awareness and early intervention. But if we evade community stigma, then there are high chances for us to reduce the rate of mental issues in South Sudan and Africa alike. Ladies and gentlemen, take an example of some of the communities, more especially in Africa and Asia. People still view mental illness as a curse. Now it becomes so hard as many of us in these other South believe that mental illness is a curse. Ladies and gentlemen, permit me to justify my point of argument. According to LinkedIn, it shows how to break the stigma, how to encourage those with mental health illness issues, those who are having problems mentally. I have this point through the table of the moderator by the judges and back to the audience. Not only that, but also community stigma exists across cultures and societies. According to English dictionary, the word culture is defined as the attitudes and behaviors which are characteristic of a particular group of people or organization. Moreover, society is defined as a social group of people with similar interests. Ladies and gentlemen, although the societies might vary, not knowing that stigma is a global barrier from Western societies, and that's why it has to be abolished so that we can deal with mental illness properly. Ladies and gentlemen, a global survey by World Health Organization found that stigma is the leading cause to delay in diagnosis and treatment in developed and developing countries also. Ladies and gentlemen, permit me to justify my point of argument. According to Alexander, Marshfield, and John, they say, understanding and addressing mental health stigma across cultures for improving psychiatric care, a narrative review from John and Alexander. I hand this point through the table of the moderator by the judges and back to the audience. Thank you for warning. Not only that, but also community stigma affects all age groups, the children, the adults, the elderly people. For example, a teenager might be bullied and an elderly person might be dismissed as just confused rather than seeking for mental health support. And that's why we team of farmers say we come together and we abolish community stigma so that we have a better society for both of us. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to justify my point of argument. According to MDPI, shows the graph of community stigma affecting all age, more especially the adolescents. For example, a child or mostly the young people or the teenagers might have their fellows and the teens also. If they are bullied by the people, they will have the same mentality of not accepting the same stuff that were said by their opponents. And that's why, for example, what happened on Thursday night, there was a lady who was raped. Due to fear, she did not inform the parents. Because the fear of judgment. So how their parents will judge them? That's why we team of farmers strongly affirm the resolution. I hand this point through the table of the moderator moderator, by the judges, and back to the audience. In my summary, I have talked of the principal conversation where I've said cultural taboos and silence around mental health, prevent awareness and early intervention. I also talked of community stigma exists across culture and society where I say a global survey by World Health Organization found that stigma is the leading cause to delay in diagnosis and treatment. I also talked of community stigma affects all age groups, the children, the elderly, people, where the children might be bullied and the elderly dismissed as just confused rather than seeking for mental health support. Conclusively, I would like to say community stigma has become overshadowed to improving of mental health support in our society. But if we join our hand, we abolish community stigma. Thank you for your time. The Lord bless.
For in other words, in time, I'm going to call that speaker from right by the Catholic School, and that is Jennifer Martha. Jennifer Martha, please come and take out.
In my first place, I would like to recognize the presence of the moderator, secretary, timekeeper, the judges, yes, teachers, not forgetting you, the affirmers and the negators. Ladies and gentlemen, I will stand before you and by name of Jennifer Martha, S2 from class of S2, 16 years old, coming to oppose the motion that says community stigma is the biggest barrier to improving mental health. Based on my following points of argument. Before I go further, I would like to quote what Joy John says about discouraging health checking. Discouraging health checking can have several significant discouraging effects and advantages affecting individuals and communities alike. For example, social isolation. Avoiding health can lead to feeling of loneliness, and individuals can feel that no one can help them or share their struggles with the others. Secondly, worsening in performance, academic or professional setting. Not taking help can lead to the decrease of performance and opportunities for others. I submit my evidence to the table of the judges and back to my audience. I'll go through my points. My first point says impact of self-esteem. Before I go further, I would like to give the meaning of the following. Impact can be negative or positive. Self-esteem, a belief that you are a nice or a successful person. Under impact of self-esteem, stigma can lead to self-doubt and shame or a sense of isolation, hindering recovery and overall well-being. For example, internalized stigma. Before I go further, I would like to give the meaning of internalized stigma. Internalized stigma, a feeling that something is wrong or discouraging, especially when this is wrong internally. Under internalized stigma, adopting negative belief about oneself, leading to low self-esteem and reluctance for safe help. I would like to submit my evidence to the table of the judges and back to my audience. My second point says, information rejected. My second point says, reduce access to resources. Before I go further, I would like to give the meaning of the following.
Point of information.
You're welcome.
Honorable, you say that encouraging help for sinking. Community stigma.
Not sinking, shaking.
You said sinking. That's why
I said shaking.
You said sinking. That's why I wrote it down. You see, these communities, they are discouraging the people not to go and seek for help. How do you expect people with mental health challenges to go to the hospital and go for help while they're discouraging them? For this reason, we team affirm strongly.
Reduce access to resources. I would like to give the meaning of the following. Access, when you are able to see or use something. Resources, something that you have and are able to use the country's natural resources. Under reduced access reduced access to resources, stigma can lead to less funding for mental health services, making it harder for individuals to get the support they need. For example,
Point of information, please.
rejected. For example, dividing mental health services as less important or effective than its physical.
Point that's not clear where you have said the impact of self-esteem. There is no good clarity of the point you have said. Please, can you clarify how does the impact of self-esteem lead to the delay or doesn't lead to improvement of mental health?
Self-esteem can lead to self-doubt, shame, and a sense of isolation, hindering recovery for overall well-being. Example, lack of awareness. I would like to give the meaning of the following. Lack, to be without something or not to have enough of things. Awareness, being aware of something. Under lack of awareness, adopting negative, not understanding the symptoms of mental health conditions or the significance of safe health. In summary, I've talked about impact of self-esteem, reduced access to resources, and in conclusion, I would like to call a farmer's side, come and line behind me singing a song of joy that community stigma not the biggest barrier to improve mental health. Thanks.
Summary of discussion, which is going to be done by competition secretary according to the moderator, secretary, timekeeper, judge, two competing parties, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, call Brighton Juba, the first speaker from the opposition side, and I would like to come and summarize the points that were spoken by the speakers. The first speaker, I spoke about to address misinformation, and I said that this is because of the negative stereotypes that the natural beliefs about mental health. Second speaker spoke about misinformation, and she gave example that there is a lot of misinformation about HIV, stroke, AIDS. She also spoke about discouraged health seeking, and she said that all because of fear of judgment. And the second point was spoke about limits social opportunity, and she gave examples of believing people with mental health conditions are dangerous. The last speaker spoke about the impact of self-esteem, and she said that stigma can lead to self-doubt, shame, and a sense of isolation. She also spoke about reduces access to resource, and she explained as valuing mental health services as less important or effective than physical health services. And I would like to stop here by saying our case is great: justice, liberty, and prosperity. Tonight from the position side, there is a good topic for the presentation.
Once again, how love to recognize the presence of the moderator, secretary, time manager, negators, and farmers, invited guests, visitors, teachers around, and the house at large. My name is Alado Akamgod, the team captain from the affirmative side, here to make the general summary of our point. We have talked of the following: fear of judgment. What we mean here is that people with mental illness fear to go for treatment as a result of judgment. And not only that, we also talk of misinformation, whereby we say community members discourage people with mental illness by giving them wrong information that mental health is the cause. And in addition to that, we talk of isolation and rejection. Ladies and gentlemen, what we mean here is that people with mental illness lock themselves indoors due to fear of shame. In addition to that, we also talk of funding and policies. Ladies and gentlemen, what we mean here is that community members undervalue mental illness that leads to low government funding and policies, and also internalized shame, where we say that community stigma brings out stigma where patients feel so depressed as a result of mental illness, and also suppress open conversations, where we say that stigma prevents people with mental illness from opening up on their difficulties, and also cultures and societies. Ladies and gentlemen, we mean that negative beliefs and traditions prevent people from mental illness for going for treatment. And lastly, it affects all age group, where we say that teenagers are bullied as a result of mental illness, and elders are expelled from the society. Ladies and gentlemen, before I conclude, I would love to rebut some of the points that were spoken by my opponents. They talk of access to resources. Ladies and gentlemen, access to resources can never be the reason why mental health is not improving. Reason being is that we have government international hospitals in our country whereby they don't charge a lot of money. You can go for medication if you have mental illness. So we, the team of farmers, strongly affirm the resolution. And not only that, they also talk of lack of funding, where we, the team of farmers, can never agree that lack of funding is the reason why mental health is not improving. Because we have professional doctors, whereby we have therapists, psychiatrists, and professional doctors. So we, the team of farmers, strongly affirm the resolution that lack of funding is not the reason why mental health is not improving, but community stigma. Ladies and gentlemen, to conclude, I would love to say that a bird cannot fly without wings. Community stigma at the cost of mental health is no improvement until we, the farmers, negators, and the house at large, come together to improve mental health.
You have been listening to Talk Time with Little Scholars, where young minds speak loud and proud. Catch us every Saturday on YouTube, Upperboards, and SoundCloud, brought to you by the Excellence Foundation for South Sudan, giving children a voice, one episode at a time.